Hey folks, how are you? Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands. So it's that time of year now, and this is always the most annoying time of the year for me because this is property tax time. I have here a litany of property tax bills that have to be paid, but there's also a system to organize it. And as many of you know, I have done my business, a lot by myself, a lot to go through my business, the process of learning my business by myself. So that way I would own my own processes in business. One of the things that I see is a lot of people will wait until, they'll get a business, they'll start something, they'll immediately start hiring people without understanding how to do their business themselves. They are not their first employee. They look for other people to fill in a job that they otherwise will not learn to do. It's one of the things I learned in business. That's the difference between delegating and abdicating. Once I became proficient at my business and understood the ins and outs and how to operate my business, I started to turn towards looking to hire employees. One of the problems I found with hiring employees is that employees sometimes want more than what they qualify for. And a lot of times they say they have skills that they don't necessarily have that are looking to move your business forward. So with the one of the things people don't talk about in business is one of the things that sucks about having a business, and that's what we're going to talk about today. One of those things is property taxes. Yes, it's great to own real estate. Yes, it's great to make thousands, tens of thousands of dollars per month, might I add. That looks good when you're raking in the money, but the labor of managing that, and again, like I told you, it's easy to get a property. When you first start off owning real estate, any kind of real estate, it's easy to start off, you know, thinking the hardest struggle will be, well, how do I get my first property? If you have enough funds, enough capitals, or access to capital, you will be able to get a property. The thing that you will struggle with is once you start to build what is called a portfolio. This is a portfolio. I'm going to show you on this computer screen here. You may not be able to see it because that's fine, but these numbers here are all the properties that I own under contract currently right now. These are all the APNs, all the numbers of how much these contracts are worth. And you see the total number down here as 110 properties that I have either, I've condensed it down because a lot of them have been sold. There are about 35 active properties right here paying anywhere from, one to $600 a month that people are making payments on. And the bigger issue right now is, managing that workload because all of these properties have property taxes associated with them. One of the things that's common in the land business or real estate businesses is that you get your tenants or people, I call them my clients, that are making payments to pay the property taxes. That's great. When they do that, that also gets counted against you as earned income, which you have to then pay government taxes for. So I've elected, which people may or may not disagree with, to actually pay the property taxes myself, and that is to have something to write off against my actual earned income in the form of the payments that I receive on my land payments. This is super annoying because a lot of times what I have to do is go through every property that I own, the APN number or the assessor's parcel number, which is basically the property ID number that helps you locate it where a land is or is associated to the tax bill. And I have to go through each one of these because when people ask me about land ownership and why I wrote a book, yeah, I've been doing this for years. I wrote a book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, because it's much more than just understanding, you know, land ownership or real estate ownership. This is what people don't show you. They talk about property taxes, but they don't show you the numerous amounts of bills. And if you look over here, this thick thing right here, this pile right here, are all property deeds. These are all deeds of ownership. All right. Now these are not, these are some lots that are under contract, and these are some lots. When I say it's 110, you see how thick this shit is right here? These are property deeds. All right. These are deeds of ownership that are sold or unsold at this point. Well, actually, they're not sold, they're under contract, or they haven't been sold. They're all mixed in here. So that way I would know who these properties are attached to. So I have to go through and make sure that all the property taxes are lined up with the appropriate property numbers every year and make sure they're right updated because again, we're dealing with the government. There are times where the government does not have my address right. They mess up my address. I've noticed errors, clinical errors, clerical errors, where you have to go through and make sure that they have the right address. They sometimes misspell things, and sometimes you don't get mail on the properties. So you can end up falling behind on your properties and owing back taxes on your property, which can lead to your property being foreclosed. And in vacant land, what ends up happening is they foreclose on that property or put it into delinquency or default, and then they go back out and sell it to the general public in the form of a tax sale or tax lien sale. Sometimes they just take the property and they go back out and we'll put it on something like bids for assets, or they have county property sales. Sometimes in the East Coast, they call them sheriff sales, where they will sell these properties basically for pennies on the dollar, which may or may not be good because there might be things that are associated with the property, and then that does make the deed of ownership a little bit harder to deal with when you're selling the property, when you're closing through title. But it does happen. And one of the bigger issues is you have to actually go through. So, one of the things I have to do is I have to get all the property tax the APNs or assessor's parcel numbers organized in numerical order, and then go through this long list of property taxes, which I have here. And again, you will not be able to see most of it. A lot of this is public information, so it's not like I have to sit here and wonder. A lot of things are public information. If you own real estate in America, everything is public information. There's really nothing to hide. So I have to go through, and I created a spreadsheet where I have all the property taxes. The property taxes organized according to the APN number, and I have them all there, so that way I can make little notations. The first column that I have are the APN numbers organized, the taxes that are due, so I can look at what the the tax bill are sending me. A lot of times, what you'll see here is that when you own land, they will send you, especially in California, they will send you two installment payments to make. Here, one is in April, and the other is due by December 10th. And you can split your property tax bills, which are great. But a lot of times, if you have a higher income that you're making in the form of earned income, meaning that I'm getting payments on properties and I make a lot of money, sometimes it's better to do as a tax strategy to pay them both off in the same year, so you can get the higher amount of write-off that you can qualify for when you're organized or in your business. And you, of course, need to talk with your accountant, your CPA, in order to make sure which strategy is the best. But this is a video more about the organization of how to deal with that. So it's very easy to do. A lot of people maybe right now are looking at, well, I don't want to do all that work. I want something that's easy, done for me. And I've talked about that in other videos. One of the problems with the easy done for me is that you pay well, here's the price because you want an easy monthly subscription, monthly fees, where a lot of that can be done for you. This is a one-time setup for me. The only thing I have to do is go in and update it periodically whenever someone pays off a property or I sell a property off very quickly, or I have to reclaim a property. But very little needs to be done when you're doing so. If you set this up while you're doing it, while you're doing your business, things will be easier if you create these systems in the beginning. And a lot of people will not take that time out to do that because it's just simple fucking laziness. You want success, but you do not want to travel and pay the tax and the tolls that are required on the roll to success. You're going to have to put some work in. I mean, even if you're managing businesses and stuff like that, you can't tell me that Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger never had to sit through hours and hours of paperwork all day, even at a high level. You cannot get to the top if you think that business is all about just social media content creation. You get to look good, lights, camera, action, and that's it. That is not how businesses are run. The businesses are run by someone sitting down, looking at numbers, crunching numbers, and making decisions and making sure that everything is running smoothly from a top down level. But that means that they are typically busy when everyone gets to clock out, or when everyone's having fun, or they're mentally, just absorbed into the thoughts of what they need to do next for their business. A lot of times I go to sleep thinking about what I got to do the next day, and stuff pops up. And then you have to get to this laundry list of, just in California alone, about 80 properties to go through that I need to make sure that I have all of the correct APNs are there, all of the invoices are matching up here, all of them has been sent to me, and that if anyone's are missing, I have to reach out to the county and say, hey, I don't have this one. What's the update? Send a change of address form, and then I have to come back and figure out, have I sold this lot? Because in California, if you sell a lot, like in the middle of the year, you still will get the tax bill, even though the transfer of ownership is gone to the new owner. So then I have to go and say, hey, you bought this land, here's your tax bill, and send it to the people that I've sent it to. A lot of people may say this is not how they would run a business, and that's fine. My business is for me helping out average people. I'm not a multi-million dollar company. I never aspired to be. If I get there, fine. But I never set myself out for that high of a goal because I understood that I wasn't going to make millions in helping out regular people with no interest, no credit checks, and payments as low as $250. If I wanted to be a millionaire, then I would sell my plots for you know, the higher the 20, 30, 40, $50,000, and I would be selling them for like $1,000 a month. I'd be charging people what is a cheap rent for the properties to own them. And that's not what I set out to do. When I look back on my legacy of business, I want to look at the fact that I've helped more people than I profited off of people. I want to make a profit, but I didn't want to do that at the expense of my soul. And we see that's a problem with businesses nowadays. So I have to go through all of these. I have to actually type in the property tax amount. And the reason being that a lot of people don't, they may say this is a waste of time, is that if I ever get audited by the IRS, I want to be able to provide them documentation and show them these tax bills, be able to follow documentation. A lot of people have these external systems, and when you get audited, they're not coming to the business, they're coming to your place or whomever you did that, and they're going to ask you provide documentation. You need to provide documentation to them. You can't say, well, go to this company, they're managing it. If the company don't have the right records, that's your ass. That's you. You're the one that's going to be responsible for paying that tax bill on the business side too. There is no, I'm going to get out of this. You actually have to pay taxes on your business. You can have all the write-offs in the world, but you don't get 100% write-offs or business expenses. You're only allowed to write off a certain amount, which is generally higher than what you could on, let's say maybe a standard deduction if you're married and or single. You can get, but it's not 100%. It's not, if you have $100,000 in business and you do $100,000 in expenses, you'll be able to pay zero tax. No way. Yeah, those are people who are actually leveraging that at a high level. They give you that game that is specifically for them. But if you're a small to mid-range business, you're going to be paying property or business taxes at some point in some amount. It may not be high, may not be low, but you still have to have profit to be able to have capital to run your business. You can't just spend and then all of a sudden you're going to borrow more, and you end up in this complete endless cycle of borrowing over time, and you're supposed to have a profitable business when you have a profitable borrowing business. You're just a borrower. You're a debt-based business that's heavily leveraged into borrowing, which is most businesses there. They don't actually have capital. So I'm showing you all this because this is one of the things I hate. This is one of the labors of being a business owner, a real estate owner, that Dave Ramsey and others don't talk about. They don't tell you about. You can own doors, but you have to actually be able to deal with the property taxes, and that's just one. I got land, and this is how much I got to deal with. This will probably be about 10 to $15,000 worth of property tax bills that I end up paying. And it's taxing, and the numbers have to be right. If I miss or I don't have all the APNs right, or I'm missing a property out of here, it can be reclaimed. The county's not going to care. They're going to take the property back and they'll have it on their books, and I can say, well, I didn't get the bill. It's on me to make sure the documentation is correct, updated, and I'm paying the property tax bills. There are no excuses. I just lose out on the property. So I wanted to show you all this back end or sneak peek or exclusive look into something that is one of the, not pretty things. It's great when I tell nurses that I work with that, oh, I have a business and, I have multiple properties that I own. Yeah, but, of course, you can see no one is around when I've got to pay these damn property taxes and have to organize this. My wife did put these in numerical order. She did do that for me. So it's not like I have to do that. I do get help in a small way, but I have to make sure I go through the system and line by line and make sure this is all updated. And that's the labor of, you know, trying to obtain wealth. Even if you let a property management company, they're going to take so much of the profits. You're going to be getting a percentage because you don't want to do the work. You want to have time to go on the gram and have free time. You're going to pay somebody a large amount of money, which is what you could be saving, and again, you're going to lose time. But I'm involved in my business. I understand where my business, I know when my business is losing money. I know when I have to make cuts in my money. If you're just constantly paying a business to do these laborious things for you in your business, you're not going to know whether you're hemorrhaging money or losing money because you do not have a pulse on the life source of your business, which is the income. You can do that when you're spending time working on your business. Why would you have a business to never work on it? Everybody wants to have a business to get free time when they don't understand that in order to do that, you've got to spend a lot of time working on your business. Ask Warren Buffett how much time he doesn't. I mean, he runs multiple companies, and you think that yeah, he has people working for him, but he still has to spend time working on these businesses. He's still got to spend time managing the people that are all underneath him that he's responsible for. There's no, you just are free to go on and live your life like a child where you have no responsibilities. The higher you go up on the food chain, the more responsibility that you have, and more than likely, the more time you have to spend working than you do playing. That's it for today, folks. I've got to get on these property tax bills, but I just want to show you some of the realities in life. Yes, it does afford me certain necessities that are luxuries once tasted. Yes, it does. Yes, I just got a new computer screen, a bigger one because I was tired of working on my laptop. It does give me some ability to afford things that I could pay simple cash for right away, or I could charge it on my business account and pay it off very quickly. There are a lot of luxuries. Actually, I put this. This is a new computer screen, new keyboard because I converted my laptop here. I basically got a monitor and a new keyboard, and I was tired of working on my small laptop. So I wanted a bigger screen, which is better for my eyes. At 44, I have to have a bigger screen to work out of. I cannot work in my laptop. I could just get a desktop, but hey, you learn as you go. Any which way, folks, I wanted this to motivate you all to understand the responsibilities that are with having power, with being a business owner. And this is one of the things that it's not the highlight of my business doing, but it is one of the things that I have to be responsible for. And it is something that my clients know that I take care of. They've never had issues with this, and they end up having to be responsible for when they are owners. So I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something, and just understand that, with great power comes great responsibility. Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands. I hope you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit, understood that you need to be prepared for the responsibilities that you want out of life. And if you did find something valuable out of this video, make sure you hit that like button, actually smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and share this video to someone else who might be, thinking they're alone in business and struggling with something that, pretty much is the labor of having a business. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. I'm going to get these property taxes paid. See you.